Are you ready?
We're ready.
Here we go. So, hello and welcome to the BTS Creative Academy podcast. We're here today at Thought Bubble, a comic book festival. Just to let you know, before we get into this conversation has been sponsored by Supernova Media. They look to support creatives in this industry, and they've brought me here today. And I'm very lucky to have you here today, Talvinder. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yep.
Wonderful. That's a good way to start.
That's always a good kick-off.
A good kick-off. So tell me a little bit about what you do and what's brought you to the festival today.
So I am the founder, publisher, writer and artist of Guru Comics. We're a small press publisher which launched in 2019 because we're clever. We just didn't see a pandemic on the horizon. But yeah, since then we've self-published 7 comics. We try and do at least one a year since we launched, and it's kind of just grown. First it started with just myself, my brother and my cousin, and then we had a few friends and family who were like quite creative, and they were like, oh, how do we get involved? And we were like, well, everyone's got a story in them. What can you bring to the table? And they would start pitching ideas, and the ones we liked, we were like, all right, cool, let's do this. So we did a couple of anthologies. We've released 2 so far, and we're gonna hopefully bring out a 3rd next year.
Wonderful.
And probably get some other creators involved as well.
Excellent. So starting off a publishing company, and specifically in comic books?
Yeah, so me and my brother, we grew up loving movies, comics and stuff like that. And we both studied film at university and college. And I kind of followed it through and kind of went into the industry, working as a runner, and then I started working in broadcast TV in a variety of roles, as a runner, library manager, media management, all kinds of things like logging, editing. And then I found there was a bit of a glass ceiling, and I was like, all right, no one's really going to do me a favor here. So kind of just started freelancing as a videographer and an editor, and it just got a bit inconsistent. And when I wanted to actually tell stories I wanted to, like fictional stories, like sci-fi stories and stuff like that, no one's going to fund it. In my opinion, that's what I felt. So me and my brother just loved comic books, and we were like, all right, this is a world we can control. We can make it as big as we want, as many characters, and we don't have to worry about budgets and stuff. So we just started kind of taking what we learned in film, like we used to draw anyway, and kind of transferred it to comic books. And in that we kind of have a bit more creative control. We can make it as grand as we want. We're in other galaxies and all sorts of stuff like that. So we're enjoying it. We're enjoying the ride and
Wonderful.
Trying to do more cons and stuff like that.
So how does that feel then, having been in a place where you've tried to enter an industry that you loved, the world of films, but that industry seemed to, like you say, it had a glass ceiling. You were held back from doing your thing because you couldn't get the money to create your vision. Whereas now you're in this place where you have an idea, you can do it. You've created it yourself. How does that feel?
It's very freeing, actually. It's you kind of let your imagination run wild a bit more. You're not just kind of beholden to, all right, I'm working on a budget of like $1,000 or something like that. And like when I used to do freelance work, and I used to get quotes from clients, and they'll be like, I want Star Wars, but I only want to pay you £100. And you're like,
how's this going to work?
I'm good. I'm not that good.
Yeah. How's it going to come together? You know, the world of filmmaking is very visual, and there's lots of different elements to make that come alive. And you literally have to make your imagination come to life, and that costs money. Whereas when you've got a comic book and you want to put a comic book out into the world, it doesn't necessarily cost money. It just takes time.
It takes time.
That is the personal cost that's involved here.
Yeah. So with us, it became more of a case of like we've got day jobs, and it was more a case of, all right, how much do I put into this? And we kind of had it in that, like myself, I'll like finish work at like 4:30, get home, chill for like an hour, and then draw or write until like 11ish. And I think it's a weird switch to kind of turn off, because you kind of like, you feel, regardless of like how many sales and stuff you make, you kind of like, I need to kind of get this out of my system, like creatively. You kind of want to just get it out. Whether someone buys it or not is different, but the thing is, you've put in the passion for it, you've put in your creativity into it, and hopefully that translates to people at shows like this, like Thought Bubble and other cons. They kind of give you that opportunity to like showcase your work directly, with not just selling it online and not having a face to your audience. Come in here and stuff, you're seeing who's buying your books, kind of build up a rapport with people and stuff, and not so much sell them on it, but then they kind of believe, oh, this person actually likes what he's doing. I want to kind of read it. I want to get involved.
There's something in that, isn't there? If you love what you're doing, you have a passion for it, and you kind of touched on there that it almost doesn't matter if you'd like these things to sell and have an audience, but it's given you such a change in quality of life that how much value is there within that?
Yeah, exactly. You're not kind of just like, to be honest, like we kind of do it for ourselves. We're not kind of beholden to like thinking, all right, we're doing this just for the money sort of thing. It's more kind of like, we want to tell stories. This is an audience that actually appreciates like not just, and it's not a knock on like Marvel or something, but it's not just your mainstream kind of superhero comic book. Like ours are a variety of like crime noir stuff. There's like science fiction, there's horror, there's a mixture of stuff, because that's what we like. We like all kinds of movies and genres. So me, like the crew we kind of work with, when they pitch an idea, I'm like, what do you guys want to do this time? Like, you've done a sci-fi story, you want to do something else this time? They're like, oh, try a horror or something like that. And we're like, yeah, cool, let's fly.
So in you discovering the freedom within this, so you're now trying to help others have that same discovery?
Yeah, like I've always had the kind of inclination that everyone's got a story to tell. It's more a case of how do they do it. And we just found with ourselves, like, we're not just stuck in one medium. We're pretty creative, so we kind of thought, oh, comics is a good way for us. And then when people seeing that you're doing it, and they're like, oh, how can I get involved? Because if you done it, surely I can do it. And we're like, let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah, so even if they only have an idea and they're like, I can't draw, I'm like, all right, well, you got an idea, let's develop it, and we will help them develop it. And that's one thing I've kind of enjoyed when we started doing the second volume of our anthology, was I'm working with creators who've never worked with an editor or anything before. And I'm not saying I'm a great editor or anything, but I'm like, I'm kind of putting this out.
You know that process.
Yeah, I know the process. I understand like the sequential art and storytelling and what makes a good visual sort of thing, and kind of try to help them with that. So with one of our artists, he'd always just worked in like smaller panels, and I'm like, dude, you've got 6 pages. Give me a splash page. Let's like the last page. Let's hit the audience with something dramatic to keep them hanging on for your next story. And he was like, all right, cool, I'm going to cut loose. And he produced me a beautiful like splash page. And I'll show it to you. It's quite cool. It's like that. Because before it was just like a tiny little panel of like an octopus in space. And I was like, no, go.
This needs to be more.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something where your understanding of film is influencing how you're laying out these comic books? Because I can definitely see something within that you opened up that page and it was quite cinematic. Yeah,
it's kind of getting the beats and the rhythms of a movie. Sort of, you kind of when I kind of draw, right, I do put on the odd movie soundtrack to kind of get you in the zone. It kind of helps you just get the rhythm.
What soundtrack would you go to?
Oh, if it's like science fiction, I kind of go with like Star Wars.
Okay,
it's a classic, yes, but it's weirdly Gladiator. It's weirdly comforting for science fiction. You're like, oh, this can kind of translate, and you kind of get a different vibe of like, suddenly you got like barbarians in space.
Of course.
And yeah, it's a bit He-Man-y, but it's quite cool.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like you've moved into this world that you love, and you've got this freedom, but you're also giving this to others as well. You're building a community. You're leading a community here.
Yeah, because we grew up in East London. We're like got quite a tight knit like group of friends and family that we're quite close with. So we were like, oh, if you guys want to get involved, because it's kind of weird. We're like, none of us were born into the creative industries, and we found ourselves like in our previous experience was there is a sort of if you're kind of born into it, it's easier to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And we never had that. We kind of got to get through ourselves. So if we're getting through, we're going to take our pals with us, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because some of them they're like a really good storytellers, they didn't never had the opportunity or knew how to translate it and express it. So we're like, all right, cool. Like one of our friends, he's a graffiti artist, and we're like, dude, like you want to transfer it to comics, do a cover for us or something like that. So they're all kind of like, oh, this is an opportunity, and we're like, yeah, let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
So what advice would you give to someone then that was potentially listening into this and they're thinking, I'd like to be a storyteller, but I don't know where to start?
I'd always go, like, depends if you're if you're an artist, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like myself, when I look at my first issue I did, I'm embarrassed by some of the artwork. I'm like, because I never did any training on past GCSEs, I kind of just drew for fun.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started doing a mentorship program with Creative Access, and they helped me. The mentor I had, he just kind of guided me in sort of basics of drawing. He's like, I'm looking at your artwork. Have you ever done like life drawing? I was like, nope. And he goes, all right, go and do life drawing because this hand looks pretty gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, cool. And then within like 6 months, he's showing me my drawing from like a year ago and now. And he's like, this is like a different artist entirely. He goes,
And what did that?
it was just practice. He was like, it was very encouraging. It was really good to get that. I never really had someone that just pushed me that way. It was sort of like doors kind of open, but this guy kind of just threw them open. I was like, dude, this is what you got to do. And I started just practicing, doing like little exercises, and then just learning about genre. If you're gonna draw, you could say, oh, I want to draw a horror film, or like draw a horror comic. You kind of gotta know the beats of a horror story. Kind of just do a little bit of research, watch a couple of movies, read a couple of books, see what you like and how you want to tell a story, and then we can help you kind of guide visually for that. And like when we kind of draw, like when I write now, I kind of want to know my ending first, because I've had the experience of I've got a great idea, and then suddenly I'm like near like the last 10 pages, I'm like, oh Jesus, what
Where's
do I
this
do now?
going?
Yeah, where am I going?
Yeah.
And you kind of get stuck in like a little cul-de-sac. But then, yeah, that's always like my thing. Now, if you've got a good idea, let's work on it. Let's get an ending and then go from like C to A sort of thing.
Fill in the blanks as you go along.
Yeah, exactly. At least you know the end point, and then we can just build and go from there.
This sounds really exciting. I look forward to seeing where this goes for you. What are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Well, we're hoping to turn it into more of a, like, not just a side hustle sort of thing, trying to turn it into a bit more of a professional thing and start getting into like stores, doing like more conventions and stuff like that. I started listening to a lot of like comic book podcasts, and there's some really good ones on advice for small press, and just listen to some of the other creators on there. It's actually really inspiring. Events like this, speaking to some of the other guys, and you're like, some of them are sort of like us, where they've started like doing it as a side hustle, and they kind of just stuck with it and progressed.
There's something in the persistence, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And places like coming to Thought Bubble and other cons, you're like, this is quite inspiring. These people, they know what they like, and they're gonna, regardless, they are gonna churn it through. And there's some of the art is so inspiring here. It's so good, and yeah, it kind of just makes you want to get better. And
Good.
Yeah, and when we've come now, like we've kind of brought our whole crew, so you'll see a bunch of people wearing Guru Comics t-shirts walking around. We're like a little gang.
Yeah,
and
build on that community and spread the message.
Dude, spread the word. Go out.
Come and join in.
Exactly. And
so if anyone does want to find you, they do want to get involved with the things that you do, and they're a storyteller and they want to start, how do they get in contact with you? Where do they find you?
So they can contact us on Instagram. We're probably most active on Instagram. Then like Twitter, we're kind of fading out of X or whatever you want to call it these days. But yeah, hit us up on our Instagram, which is at Guru Comics, Guru Comic Books, sorry. And hit us up on there, or drop us an email. We'll provide our email address for you.
I'll be sure to add links in the comments below.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Yeah, just give us a shout.
And what's your most recent comic? Is this the one that you brought with you
So
today?
I bought this one with us because it's our most collaborative book. This is The Third Eye, Volume 2. This has got myself, my brother, my cousin, one of my best mates, a friend of mine, his nephew.
You've got everyone involved.
I've got the whole crew involved.
Wow, love it.
The first story in here is our most collaborative one. It's called The Scout. It's written by my friend Hamza Bashir. I've done the penciling and the inking. The colours are done by my other mate, Alfie Griffith. And
This sounds like a testament to your community.
yeah,
I look forward to reading it. Thank you so much for sharing with me today.
Yeah, no
Thank you for joining me on the podcast. If anyone has been watching or listening to this conversation, we very much appreciate you for joining us. But a final word from yourself as we come to wrap this conversation up. If anyone, we went into storytelling. If anyone wants to be a storyteller, but if anyone wants to change their creative career like you did, what's the first step?
That's a good question. I think it's know where you want to go into, and you've got to believe in yourself a bit, and definitely do some research, because there's one thing like, I want to go and tell like comic book stories, but it's what kind of stories are you going to tell? How are you going to? What do you want to put out there? That's probably the main interest, I would say.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the main route to go down.
What a great note to leave this on. So thanks once again for joining me, and
Thanks for having me.
thanks for anyone that's listening.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.